The safety and well-being of election administrators and a robust, secure election infrastructure is paramount to a functioning republic. In recent years, election security has become an even greater concern because of the radical changes and, quote, flexibilities that were allowed and attributed to COVID-19. For example, the Supreme Court in Pennsylvania ruled just weeks before a presidential election that ballots should be accepted as late as the Friday after Election Day, even ballots without a postmark. This was, of course, a direct encroachment on the authority of the Pennsylvania State Legislature, which enacted strong election integrity regulations and voter ID. And this certainly caused much confusion for election administrators and for the voters. This issue hits right at home with my constituents, as our very own Secretary of State unilaterally altered Georgia's statutory requirements, requiring the authentication of absentee ballot signatures with an unlawful consent decree. Understandably, people are concerned with the administration of the 2020 elections because partisan officials bypassed the legislative process, effectively changing the rules of the game as the game was being played. According to the documentary 2,000 Mules, thousands of ballots were illegally harvested by political operatives and placed into drop boxes in at least 5 states, which is a direct violation of state laws, which clearly say that you can only return ballots for immediate family members. To be sure, our local election administrators are not to blame for the poor decisions of some state elected officials that cast doubt on our election integrity. I applaud the efforts of election administrators, in spite of rapidly changing guidance, to administer elections in accordance with the Constitution and state laws, and I agree that their safety is paramount. Nevertheless, these constantly changing election laws from left-leaning judges amid a presidential election rightfully led to voters having questions and frustrations about the integrity of the elections. Strong election laws like Georgia's SB 202 will do a lot to ensure confidence in elections across the country. But hand recounts of paper ballots by local election officials would go a long way to further the confidence of concerned voters. In fact, I think that in my home state, every election should have an automatic 10% recount of random counties to act as an audit of the results. So, Ms. Howard, to your comment, I think that what you said about the need for election audits is absolutely correct. While I believe stronger election laws that restore confidence in our election process will reduce the threats of violence toward election officials, I believe that local law enforcement is the first and best line of defense for these types of threats. And we make sure that those who commit unlawful acts of violence are prosecuted at the state level. It's no secret that my Democrat colleagues have exploited these threats to justify a federal takeover of elections. Make no mistake, this hearing will be used as a platform by the Democrat majority to push for total federal control, like Mr. Sarbanes' Preventing Election Subversion Act of 2021. With that being said, I will direct my first question to Mr. LaRose. Mr. LaRose, as you know, the Democrats' so-called election subversion bill, H.R. 4064, would set forth burdensome requirements for federal elections. For example, it prevents meaningful poll observer access by mandating an 8-foot minimum distance in order to observe ballot counts across the country. I'm aware that there have been threats against election administrators in the state of Ohio. Is local law enforcement equipped to investigate and arrest the individuals who made these kind of threats, sir?
More than adequately equipped, Congressman. And in fact, we send a memo to all of our law enforcement partners before each election, making sure that they know not only the rights, but the responsibilities that they have to safeguard not only our poll workers, but voters, really everybody involved in the process. We've even gotten all of our elections officials to now be equipped with police radios through our state's Marks system in the case of an emergency so that we can communicate directly with law enforcement.
So local law enforcement is more than adequately equipped to handle this. Next question. Yes. How would such a federal regulation imposing an 8-foot observer distance impact your constituents' confidence that the poll observer could do their work effectively?
Well, observation is crucial, but really what that is micromanagement. For somebody in Washington to think that they need to tell 88 county boards of elections in Ohio and how many hundreds of other county boards of elections across the country how far away observers should stand is the height of federal government arrogance, in my opinion.
Thank you. I believe that local control is best when it comes to things like this. Ms. Howard, as you may be aware, poll workers at a large polling center in Detroit, Michigan, blocked the windows with cardboard pizza boxes to bar observer access to the 2020 election. Do you believe it is appropriate for windows to be blocked so that the views of observers are obstructed?
Thank you for your question. I'm not familiar with the allegations about what happened in Detroit, but I will say in general there are laws in Michigan and many other states which allow for observers at various different processes, various different points of the election process. And those observers authorized under law should not be obstructed.